Hi everyone, I'm Josh.
And I'm Jim, and this is the Dapper Meeple.
This show is about our love of gaming, the games we play, and the gaming community around this passion.
So grab some snacks, pull up a chair, and join us at the table with your monocle and bowler hat. Hey kids, remember, this is an adult podcast and may contain adult language.
Also, the Dapper Meeple outfit, not required. On today's episode, we've gathered some friends around a remote campfire to talk about our favorite spooky games.
That's right. To start off, we got Joseph from Ludamus Games, hot off of his interview for We're Sinking.
Along with the infamous brothers from BA Games, all sharing our top 3 games with a few honorable mentions.
So pull up to the campfire, toast a few marshmallows, and hear about all of the scariest, creepiest, most anxiety-inducing games that we know about.
All that and more on this episode of the Dapper Meeple.
Hey everyone, we're back again, and we're back into October, halfway through this month as we start this recording. And this might be our second favorite time of year. I think right behind Gen Con. Christmas is like a maybe fifth, right?
Yeah, solid middle of the pack. After the fantastic cons that we are able to go to every year, that feel like Christmas to us gamers. This is probably right up there at the top, maybe top 3 at most. But of course, we're talking about Halloween season,
right? And I know everybody's probably got memories as a kid. Some of us that are older really saw some terrifying stuff with those masks that were all plastic with the elastic cord. That shit was scary. It was scary. I'm not gonna lie. But we wanted to get some people together tonight, and we're talking about Halloween and what would be some good games that we've played or that we want to play during the spooky season.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and introduce our guests that we got. So returning from the last episode, we got Joseph Frederick from Ludamus Games. So
hello.
Hi, Joseph.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely, man. And then we also have the guys from BA Games. We got all 3 of them this time. So Ed, Sam, and Dave, thank you guys for coming back on the show.
It's been great.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
No problem. Happy to be here.
We were excited to have you guys back. After Gen Con, we've coined a new mental health problem. Instead of Stockholm Syndrome, it was Stockton Syndrome. Which means I'm never going to ever forget how to play, apparently Cult of the Deep and Forges of Ravenshire. So it's just like burned into our memory. Yeah,
that happens.
It's those pitches. You'll just never forget the pitches. Let's be honest.
Right. So yeah, welcome everybody, and again, thank you guys for taking the time to come sit and talk with us. This is the first time we're trying something like this. We're expanding out a little bit, and I guess let's get started. And I'll kick off. So what we've asked everybody to do is come up with 3 games, like a top 3 list for the topic, right? And we didn't check, so it's entirely possible that a lot of people have some of the same games, and that's fine. We'll make that work. But I'll start off with my number 3, which is going to be Mysterium. We had played this game, a couple times. Essentially, you're a spirit trying to help people solve your murder. And you do this by giving them clues. You have to use the cards that they give you.
They're very abstract art cards.
Yeah. So it takes a little bit of... it takes a little bit of A, knowing the group you're playing with, and B, being a little creative yourself, and hoping everybody else picks up on it. So.
Yeah. So my number 3 is going to be My Father's Work by Renegade Game Studios. So this game is one that I haven't had a chance to play yet, but it's definitely on my top list of wanting to get to the table. In My Father's Work, you play as a family of mad scientists that live outside of some small Hungarian town, and you are trying to complete this project over 3 generations of your family. So each generation has smaller experiments that they do that range from, semi-normal to absolutely crazy. And depending on the choices that you make and the experiments that you do during each phase, the town actually changes over each generation. So if you do things that support the town, like it grows bigger and becomes more prosperous, or in one playthrough that I've seen, there's a chance to like get involved with this group that turns the whole town into werewolves. So that could also happen.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a worker placement game, so it's very much that kind of Euro style, but it is absolutely dripping with some awesome theme. It really fits in kind of that mad scientist vibe.
First of all, worker placements are terrifying for me. Again, thanks, Sam. I don't think I've never played this one.
No, I don't think you have either. Okay. It came out a couple years ago, and never like hit super high popularity. But it does have a kind of app driven story to it that kind of controls that part of it, which I am a fan of app games. But it's one that's definitely it's unique in its theme, that I really like, and I definitely think it fits in with the
spooky season theme.
Yeah, 100%.
3 generations. Are the generations like dying off?
Yeah. So like you start as like, whatever your name is, the first, and then you have the second and the third, and like you have your little family, like a wife and usually like a butler and like other servants and stuff, and those are all your workers that you send out. And terrible things might happen to them where you lose your workers. So yeah, it's a blast. It can be a little bit heavy, it looks like, but it definitely looks pretty cool. All right, Dave, what's your number 3?
Yeah, my number 3 actually is also Mysterium.
First crossover, yes.
It's a good game, and it's got a lot of that theme, and already been explained a little bit. But reason why it's my number 3 is I used to work at a game store, and when we did around the Halloween season, we'd usually have kind of like a costume contest, and then the other part of that is we would do organized play events, and one of the games was Mysterium, and that was always something that people really liked. It's got a pretty, I think you have up to 5 investigators. There's always one spirit, but I think you have up to 5 investigators. And what's really cool is it's the beginning, like it's kind of separated into 2 phases. There's like the initial investigation phase where you're trying to figure out like who did the murder, what was the weapon, in what room, kind of thing. So it's almost not necessarily, and the investigators can work together. So it's not like completely cooperative, but at the end of the game, it's a little bit more competitive where the players are trying to figure out what actually happened, right? And there's like this second phase to it. And if you did really good in the first phase, you kind of like set yourself up for success in the second phase. But I really liked it because high player count, there's not a lot of like dice, there's not a lot of like heavy mechanics. It's very much like interpretation and logic and talking, and sometimes jokes happen, between the investigators and stuff. Very thematic, very good for people who are not accustomed to sitting down and playing games all the time. People will look at Mysterium and say, you know what, that looks cool, or what are they playing? It's got this big DM screen, it's got these little crows on it and stuff like that, it's got a little sand timer in it. It's kind of a cool table presence. It's kind of a fun game, and people want to be like, oh, I want to be the ghost next because that looks fun, that looks cool. Or the ghost will usually, I want to try it but from the other side. Ability out of it, especially with people who are not super heavy board gamers. So that's why it's my number 3.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games that does a high player count really well, which I know can be difficult with a lot of games. I know one of the twists that we did with a group that I've played Mysterium, gosh, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 times, is we actually included the cards from a similar game, Dixit. Included the art cards from in there because it's also that same vein of abstract art, and use those as clues as well. And that was really, really cool. It added a little bit of variability because after a while it was like, oh, that card always gets pulled out when it's, the whatever. So it added that little bit of variance to it that made it fresh again, even with a group that I played multiple times. So yeah, definitely Mysterium, good number 3, first crossover, fantastic. All right, Ed, what you got for number 3?
I'm gonna go a little classic here with Arkham Horror. Now, when I say Arkham Horror 2nd edition, that's the edition I have. I have yet to upgrade to the 3rd edition, which is supposed to be a little more sleeker and upgraded. It has a little bit less component-wise and stuff like that. But I have the 2005 edition. It's classic Cthulhu, right?
Right.
I like the big board. It's not modular, but it's a board. There's lots of little decks. So it's kind of a little bit of a pain to set up, but it's a great game because it's 1 to 8 players. Everyone's doing their thing. It does take longer to play, but it's variable bosses depending on what boss you have to do. Depends if like the boss appears, you're automatically going to die, or whether the boss takes longer to destroy. There's random things happening and horror things happening. It's your classic. Oh, it's Halloween. I want to do something Cthulhu-like. So Arkham Horror is a great game. 3rd edition is supposed to be a little more streamlined, but I have 2nd edition because I'm cheap.
Is that the one? Don't they have like some themes of that one too? Like some crossover?
So there's multiple expansions for as well as like the King in Yellow and all these other things like that for all the different Cthulhu things out there. So it's usually a very popular IP in general. But Arkham Horror is a great Halloween game. You got several hours to sit down and just play, and you enjoy the Cthulhu mythos. Arkham Horror is the way to
go. So feel a theme, Ed. Just saying. We'll get to that. Joseph.
My number 3 is also Mysterium. No, just joking.
Sorry.
I almost had Mysterium, but I think one thing that keeps me from that game, even though it gets played every year, once every year, and because it's always a year before I play it again, that game is really a lot to set up. Like it is, or at least for me it is. It's like a lot of different like things you got to remember to look at and not look at and pass, and when you're also dealing with like 6 other people around you and like talking and all that you're trying to teach, it can be a bit much.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I wanted to just kind of butt in whenever you mentioned that you have used Dixit cards for Mysterium. I have done that. I wanted to do you one better. Have you ever done Mysterium cards with Codenames pictures?
I haven't, because the only Codenames Pictures game I played was the Disney edition, so it didn't really fit in.
They murder people at Disney all the time. I don't understand. That should be fine.
All the time. It's covered up.
Right. And this is where the next cease and desist letter comes from. Awesome.
But I bet they would fit right in. Same, because that's the same genre of that kind of more abstract art. Yeah.
That's good. It's a good time. You play that game a lot. My number 3 is Black Mold.
Ooh.
Has anyone heard of that?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's John DeCampos.
It is, yeah. He's a local designer as well, and he actually launched this on Kickstarter about the same time I launched Versinki. Just reeks. I was gonna say dripping, but reeks of theme with this one. And John DeCampos, his artwork is just amazing and epic. Everything he does. So I have not played this, but I want to. I have it. The main thing, the main appeal to this game is the fact that your turn is as long as you can hold your breath, because you're trying to make it out of this dungeon or cellar that's filled with black mold, and you can't breathe it in, or you're going to start taking damage. And you're looking for weapons and things like that to get through this labyrinth, and your turn can only be as long as you can hold your breath. So it can be really nail-biting and adrenaline-pumping, from what I hear.
Anxiety induced.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say,
Anxiety.
some of us have meds for that. We might double up for that game.
That sounds extremely unique, though. That's
for you.
yeah.
Don't you have to actually hold your breath during that game?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you actually and actually while you're doing something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Dave can attest to it because Dave actually played it.
Yeah.
But basically you got to do different puzzles and stuff, right, Dave?
Yeah. So they're essentially, rather than your actions being limited by the number of things you can do, it's based off of how much anxiety you're dealing with holding your breath. And for those who are like, I don't want to jump the gun, because my next game I was going to talk about was going to be Black Mold, and I can explain more if you want me to hold off, or do you just want me to jump in?
Nah,
here?
go for it, man.
Yeah. So Black Mold, I actually just played it last night with my wife. And so you, rather than being limited by, say, the number of actions, you're limited by your ability to hold your breath. You can also use a sand timer that's in there. It's a 60-second sand timer for those. There's even like a little like liability warning of terrible games is not responsible if you pass out and hit your head while you're playing the game. Like, hold your breath, but don't, take it easy. Have some fun. Don't kill yourself. And if you're playing with Michael Phelps and he can hold his breath for 12 minutes, then use a sand timer instead to make it even. But one of the cool things about the game is that, like, it's co-op. There's kind of a cooperative revenge kind of element, and the actions are simple. But you're like, oh yeah, I can hold my breath. I can totally search this room and run through a corridor and stuff like that. But you're like trying to flip over this deck of cards with one hand, by the way. One hand is also supposed to be behind your back. Oh. So like everything on your turn is only like one-handed breath holding, and you're trying to do everything that you want to do. You can either search rooms or you can run through rooms. And in order to run through a room, you have to match cards into a certain like horizontal order of that value. So if a room has like 5 on it, you have to like chain 5 cards together that all match, and then you have to move. And then if you end your turn in like say a space that is moldy, then you're going to take damage or it's going to do something bad. And so you're trying to like, oh, I don't want to be in this room anymore. I just discovered it. It's a infested or germinating room, which is going to deal a bunch of damage. So I'm like trying to panic to try to get more cards, but then I run out of cards. And I'm like, now what do I do? And I'm trying to like roll dice, and you're trying to like look for certain symbols, and you're taking damage, and you're like, I don't know what's happening. And I'm like, I'm running out of breath, and panic is setting in, and I can't breathe. And it just becomes, it's really cool is it's almost like a weird dexterity game. I'm usually not a super big fan. The way that it weaponizes anxiety is incredible. It really puts a lot of pressure on you, as well as like the game can be a little bit brutal. So if you get a little bit unlucky and you die, you're still in the game. So if someone like has a rock card and you only have a couple health left and they just throw a couple rocks at you and they kill you, if you are infected enough, you actually come back as a fungal thrall, and it's now your job to go like chase them down and beat them, and then they become fungal thralls. And so like everyone's like trying to go down these weird pathways of like, I don't want to be in this room, or I want to be in this safe space so I can heal or so I can do things. You can trade items with other players, or you can threaten players. So like each character has different like it's grit, fit, and wit are the 3 stats. So like there's a character named Gray that is a really beefy fighter. And so as Gray, I could be, hey Ed, we're in the same room. We're both in this safe room. I could say, you're going to give me that shiv. And if you don't, bad things are going to happen to you. And Ed can say, well, on his turn, he can then like try to stab me, or he can do whatever, or he can say, all right, I guess not, right? And so you can do a little bit of politicking. It's definitely more of I think it's up to 5 players, I think, without any of the expansions. 4 or 5 players definitely feels like it's right, because that's where you start to get more politicking and trading and trying to push people behind you and trip them up and trying to escape for your own good. And as Joseph said, the art and theme is really what drew me in, and it's fantastic. It's just dripping in flavor, pretty much. Or mold in this particular case.
I was going to say.
It's like, the strawberries that like sat in the fridge a little bit too long, So
I love too that it's like I don't get real into dexterity games, but if you make me pass out, I'm in.
There we go. Absolutely. It's a good
Jim.
game. I look forward to playing it more.
Nice. All right, well, Sam, we had a back, so we got a little bit of a break. You're up.
All right, I'm up. So this one I like playing with my friends. It's the original like setting is kind of like horror sci-fi. It's the level 7 from Perpetua Press. But the one game I like in that series the most is called Omega Protocol. And what it is, it's some of you are playing as commandos and one of you is playing as the mastermind. And so it's kind of like a dungeon crawl. You know, you go through just stuff, but you're going into basically like level 7 or Area 51, basically. And all these like alien experiments and all this stuff, all hell's broken loose, and all these bad things are trying to infect you or eat you or kill you or dissect you. But during that game, the main mechanic that really is interesting is, as a hero or a part of commandos, you can use what's called adrenaline. And you can use that to like, oh, I'm going to jump over this guy, shoot this guy in the face, and throw him over to here, and like, oh man, I'm Keanu Reeves. And so you're like, oh, this is awesome. But the problem is, every time you use adrenaline points, the mastermind gets those points at the end of the round, then be used against you. As different things like, oh, because of that, I get to spawn the abomination from behind you. And you're like, oh no. And so, like, the more they do and be cool, the more power I have to absolutely destroy you. And so it's you versus the other players. Really enjoy that game.
Is that is the mastermind a player? Is it kind of like kind of sitting in that like DM seat and the rest?
Yeah, so it's kind of like, have you ever played like Descent, like 2nd edition or like that? So it's like, or Hero Quest.
Yeah, Hero Quest I know.
Yeah, it's Hero Quest, but every time you do stuff, you give the mastermind more powers. So it's like being a GM, but now I don't care if I total party wipe. Like, I'm okay with it. That's the whole point.
Man, your whole family competitive at games.
A little bit.
Yeah, fair.
It's not competitive. We just like killing each other.
Yeah.
No, we have never yelled at each other or flipped boards or thrown cards at each other. I'm like, if you turn an SF for risk, so help me.
No.
Yeah, I don't believe any of that. All right, cool. Let's go to my number 2. Dave did his number 2.
Yep. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Perfect. Like, right? That's what gamers do. We play a lot of the same games. It's fine. My number 2 that I pulled is one that we've had for a little while, and I think there's an expansion out for it now that we don't have. But that is the Night Cage by Smirk and Laughter Games. I think this one is really good. Just when we start talking about building up that little bit of anxiety in and of itself. So what you do is basically the theme behind it is you wake up in this prison. You're in this dark, scary room, and it's just you and your candle. It is a cooperative game where you are all trying to get out alive, right? Your candle is, it's a candle, so it only sheds light so far. So you can see the tiles, because it is a tile-laying game, that are immediately in your light, right? So just the ones adjacent to you. As you move through this, the whole point is to try to find keys and try to find the door out. But as you're doing this, when you get your turn to move, when you move, your light moves with you, right? So you'll reveal the next set of tiles that are going to be adjacent to you there. The ones that you leave behind go dark again. So you end up pulling those off of the board. So that's how you start burning through your tiles. You have a little tower of tiles that when you start to place them, that's where you'll pull from. So it can be one of those where, what you've gone through, it changes. So if you have to go back the other way, it can cause problems there. Your light can also go out. There are monsters and traps and things that you can reveal on those tiles. And when your light goes out, you can only see the space that you are immediately standing in. So I think that's one of those two that you're watching your tile tower slowly drain. And if you get to the end of it and you haven't escaped yet, the game's over and you all lose. And then if something happens to you and you have to deal with a monster, don't you get kicked back? I think we avoided a lot of those.
We did.
Yeah. We've always just kind of gotten lucky with that. But yeah, a lot of that kind of like, it's not holding your breath on purpose, but it is a lot of that kind of, reveal the next step and see how far you can go. And then, like you said, you're burning out those tiles on the way down. Definitely a really cool one, too, if you can set it up in the dark, like candlelight level. I think it definitely has a little bit more of a scare to it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these games, you could really elevate with a little bit of ambiance, right? A little bit of candles, a little bit of low lights, all that sort of good stuff.
Smoke machine.
Yeah, a fog machine if you have it,
Unless you're, I mean, you're already holding your breath anyway for that one.
Yeah, not to risk it too.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine. So my number 2 is actually Vagrant Songs by Weird Games. So Vagrant Song is a cooperative boss battler in which you and other vagrants have hopped on a ghost train, traveling to you don't know where. But each round or each game that you play, you fight off what are called haints. And these are various ghosts and spirits that have inhabited the train. And through your different like asymmetric powers, you fight off these ghosts and try to bring them back to the light, basically. I wasn't sure when we first got this game that I was really going to enjoy it because there are a few things with the kind of the mechanics that are a little fiddly. But the more we played it, like the game really hums and sings once you figure out kind of the way to play it and some of the more niche roles in it. But it has the that whole almost 1920s style cartoonish
that's what I was just
artwork
thinking.
to it. Really, really cool. I just enjoyed a lot about it. And it definitely fits in with kind of that spooky, eerie theme. Definitely, you play it as a campaign if you want, or you can play just the individual games. But if you play it as a campaign, there's like in between sessions where you get to talk with like the spooky ghost cat that you can buy things from. It's fantastic. But also you have like decisions that you make that will affect like how well or how easy the next scenario is.
Yeah.
And how well you go into it prepared or not. But yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites, just for the all around kind of spooky theme.
And the ghosts or the haints, because we're using 1920s terminology as well. Some of them are pretty like terrifying. Like they're a little disturbing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a good one.
That's weird for you. They are really good at making disturbing imagery and things.
And especially with the way the art style is, like you said, it's that cutesy little like 1920s. Everybody's like the eyes are too big and like they're all like that kind of like that rounded cherub kind of look to all of them. And then you deal with one of the ghosts and it's like, oh yeah, he peels his face off. And it's like, all right, cool. Let's next.
No,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm getting the hell off this train. I'm done. So yeah, which I don't know what the right word for train vagrants are. It used to be hobos, but I don't know if it's not the 20s anymore. But you're on a train, so that's kind of the theme.
Yeah. But it's one of the coolest boss battler type games I think I've played. Just for the uniqueness of the theme, I think, as well as some of the interesting mechanics that drop into it. So,
all right, Ed, we're just gonna skip Dave. He took his turn.
No one likes him anyways. It's fine.
Bro.
Friggin' stealing other people's board games and crap.
Yeah.
You gotta watch Little Brothers, man.
I know. Sorry, Dave. Sorry. So, Mall of Horror, it would be number 2. Now, my games aren't really in any particular order. They're just games I like to play around Halloween. That being said, Mall of Horror is an enjoyable game. It's a lighter game. Basically, it's 2 to 6 players, 2 to 5 players. It's been a while. I haven't played it yet this year. Anyways, 2 to 5 players, I believe is what it is. Actually, no, it's 3 to 6. Just looked it up. So it's 3 to 6 players. And what it is everyone's stuck in this mall. And so you have this little wheel that has a team color on it. So everyone has a team. And they have 3 different little pawns that are in this mall. And so the whole point of the game is to be the last people surviving in this zombie apocalypse that's just happened in the mall. Now, the gameplay is not like some intricate gameplay. There's not a lot of thinking. Depending on your game group, it may not be for your game group because it's definitely, 1, it's a lighter game, and 2, everyone's voting on people to die, right? So some people don't like some of that confrontation. I'm personally a big fan of it. I like games that are confrontational. Be like, you know what? I'm totally going to be your friend, Sam. And then like next turn, hey, Dave, let's vote him out and he can be fed to the zombies. So,
Good
yeah. Weaponized anxiety once again. So Mall of Horror is a great little game. and it plays off the horror tropes, right? If your cheerleader attracts more zombies because they scream more. There's a football player with the bat. There's a guy with the gun, and that determines your number of votes. The guy with the gun has an extra vote. The guy with the bat keeps out an extra zombie. It's basically, horror tropes in a light little fun game where you vote people to be fed to the zombies, because when zombies are coming in, you feed one person, everyone else escapes, and the zombies go away happy and fed. And that's pretty much the game in a nutshell. They have a little deck of cards. You can run away and get like a shotgun and grenades, but it's
Now,
not
you don't
a bad
have to
little
vote,
game.
though, right? Like, you could make it if everyone works together, so you don't have to.
No, so the game will eliminate people. The design of the game is the game is not over until everyone can fit in a single room that is not the parking garage. And so the biggest room out there has like 6 people max. And so the game will end by people dying. And if too many zombies get into a room, it actually closes the room. If you're stuck out in the parking garage, each zombie kills a person. Like, people are being fed to zombies, and you get to decide who gets to do that. So it's a great, fun game to feed your siblings or friends to zombies.
Right? It's the whole point of board games is you get to live out your fantasies.
I don't like where this is going.
Nice. Joseph.
My number 2 is okay. So spoiler: I haven't played any of the games that are on my list, but they're here because I want to. So the second one here is Dreadful Meadows. This was another Kickstarter that came out about 2 years ago. Well, it was on Kickstarter 2 years ago. You are playing as a confectioner and sewing and growing sinister seeds of like candy and things like that for Halloween, or I believe it's Halloween. It's very, very much themed around Halloween. So, but I believe it's a worker placement, and it just has a lot of, again, a lot of theme, and the artwork is really something special.
The box cover is, the pumpkin-headed character on the box cover.
Yeah.
Again, just no, that's terrifying. Oh.
Yeah. So something about it, just it's unfortunately I didn't back it. I should have, but one day I'm hoping to check it out. Looks like a good time.
Yeah, this one looks really interesting. I like the neon colors of all the artwork and stuff. Even though it does have that kind of creepy vibe, it's definitely more of like the fun kind of creepy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, almost what's the Tim Burton
The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. I can see that. We're flipping through the artwork now.
Yep, so that's my number 2.
Yeah, fantastic. That one looks really cool. Definitely unique theme as far as like making and harvesting candy to make new concoctions. Yeah, that one definitely looks really interesting.
Oh, and there's an expansion already. So if you like it, you can go get both. So nice. All right, Sam. What else has your family done to traumatize each other?
Oh, we've done all manner of things.
That's a different list.
That is definitely a different list, because one of those games is, I think it's called Lifeboats, where you vote people off lifeboats in order to make it to the
Great
island.
game. Fantastic game.
Yeah.
Great game.
Actually play with Ed.
Because with Ed, we basically just say, all right, everyone in favor of throwing it out the boat, and everyone agrees, throw out the boat. So eventually, what happens in the first few rounds is Ed doesn't get to play anymore.
Yeah, it's great fun. I love that game.
We got really tired of him being like, it's such a good idea. Trust me. I'm your friend.
Yeah.
Stab in the back.
I get eaten that game. It's not good.
So, yeah, there's a lot of trauma and history there. All right. So, my number 2 is... So I'm going with games that I actually have played. There's so many spooky Halloween kind of themed games that I have not played. I have a list of those.
Bro, why you gotta be
mentions.
like, call people out like
Yeah.
No, I'm saying, just saying, because...
Bro,
Well, because the game I'm calling out is not like super, like.
So you're embarrassed about it. It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Why am I related to you? Just go away.
I love it. Usually it's Thanksgiving that ruins families, but we're doing it for Halloween, baby.
It's all year round.
It's year round, dude.
This is
You guys,
great.
Dave. It's year round. Anyways, so mine is Lizard Wizard.
I have never heard of this game, Sam.
It's okay. It's a Lizard Wizard is what it is. It's you are trying to collect wizards, going to send wizards into the dungeons in order to collect gold before they get attacked by like undead and stuff. You're trying to bid on collecting towers and stuff. And so basically what it is, it's during your turn, you can either like get a spell, or you can get a wizard or a tower, and they all do different things. Like spells allow you to like cheat and do different benefits and stuff. Wizards give you like points, give you resources throughout the game. Towers allow you to hold resources, and then dungeon delving is like to risk it, like try to get as much treasure as you possibly can before you get hit. But sometimes you get greedy and then you get hit anyways, and then you're like, well, that sucks. So there's a bit of like depending what you want to do during the game. So I'm not trying to call anyone out. I'm just saying Lizard Wizard, like, it has, like, some, like, spooky-ish elements, sort of, but not really.
I'm sorry, Joseph. I'm so sorry, Joseph.
So just to be clear, it's all lizards. So when you're thinking of like, oh, people, wizards, no,
They're lizard wizards.
It's lizard wizards. I want to make sure that everybody goes looks at that because that's exactly what it is.
Basically, if you were to Halloween, make sure you get the necromancers because they wear little bird skulls over.
Yeah, I
their
see that
heads
one.
and stuff. He's cool. And so. Yeah, that's kind of the game. It's really fun. I enjoy it. It's really it's kind of like an economic game, really, is what it is, because prices go up for certain things. You want to cash it in for the most mana possible. Then your brother, of course, always does it before you do, so he makes some more money. So then you're mad at him.
Fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I love how this episode is also turned into a Stockton therapy session. Like,
We needed it. We really
We need a therapist. We really
appreciate
do.
You guys, you guys saw us at Gen Con. You know how it was.
You should join us next time, Joseph.
Right?
I
He was
can-
there.
Yeah. I can bring my brother on here too. We can just therapy too. Why not?
Hell yeah,
oh
let's do it.
man,
And stuff like this is why we need to start a Patreon. I'm telling you.
We'll call it brotherly love.
It's gold, Sam. It's gold. All right. So my number 3.
you're number one.
Yeah, my third one, which is my first one. So Josh was the one that really got me more into the board game side of this. Like we've talked about before, we grew up pretty religious. Me more so than him. By the time he came around, Mom and Dad had gotten soft, and he was getting into magic and everything else. When I was a kid, like I had to go be like washed and burned at the stake or something for stuff like that. But one of the first board games that I remember making a big impact was one that a buddy of mine gave me, and he's like, "Hey man, go try this out." We were doing a school project, and we decided we were going to make a board game for one of these classes. We had to do something fancy or like creative, and he gave me this board game to try out. And for years, I couldn't remember the name of it, but I found it when we were getting ready for this, and it is Atmosphere. It's gone by a couple of other names, like over the years, because it's about 30 years old now. I think the really terrifying part about it is I remember that the game comes with a video that goes along with it. And when I was playing it, it was a VHS.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I had this too.
Did you?
Yeah.
I've talked to people about it and asked them, and they're all like, "No, I've never heard of it." Like, so yeah, like I said, when I got it, we're talking like mid 90s when I was playing it, and you put the VHS tape in, and as soon as you hit play, the timer starts. So in the original one that we were playing, like you were trying to work your way around the board. I think you were like in a graveyard. It's been a while, and I don't remember stuff from last month. So digging back,
Got to dig deep for this one.
28 so years. But you're playing the game. You've got that timer going on the screen, and from time to time, this just terrifying looking. They called him the gatekeeper. Would pop up on the screen. You would stop all play, and he would give you directions, like whose turn is it? Move back, or But when it popped up, it was definitely a jump scare. They have updated this game and done expansions for it since then. I think they got it on DVD now, and I think you can actually download the videos like a regular human being now. So it was one of those games that I've remembered for so long. And when we started talking Halloween games, I was trying to get Josh. I was like, yeah, there's this game with this videotape. And he just looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language for a little bit. But yeah, it's called Atmosphere. I think there's an Atmosphere 2 out now. And then there's just a ton of like expansion packs that you can get for it. Like there's the Baron Samedi. I think there's an Elizabeth Bathory in there. Just a lot of like updates that they've gone to it.
I think it was called Nightmare whenever we got it. I think our mom got it at a yard sale. We got it, and I don't remember playing it at all, but I remember the face because we watched the video. We just would watch the video, and like, this is kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's all beef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it might have been Nightmare when I played it too. I watched the video when I was looking for it, and I was like, "Oh, that's that." But yeah, that's the same game. It's changed names over the last 30 years, like I said. But it was definitely one of those that, like, when I was a kid too, it was like terrifying. Just the jump scare, and just they did so well on the video, just making that guy look really creepy. So I had to see how far back I could reach for an old people game. So I hope some people listening, like Joseph, remembers it.
$200 on Amazon right now.
What?
$200 on Amazon right now.
Oh.
Well, I'm looking at it. It came out in 91, and then by 1993, it sold like 2 million copies.
Which is wild for... Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
I mean,
So,
according to the website, it is a home. It's an amplified experience in home entertainment. So I mean, you can't just throw that shit out there and not like sell some games. I'm just saying.
You know it's old when they say home entertainment. No one uses those words anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
The VHS board game world is gonna be huge.
Oh,
Damn those DVDs for taking it from us.
just missed opportunity. I'm telling you. Hey, when we design a game, we got to remember this stuff. I'm just saying.
Putting it on VHS.
Yeah.
Well, at least you don't make up games. I swear I played some game somewhere that was Zombie Apocalypse and the currency was old VHS tapes. Like, and no one has heard of that game, and I swear I've played that game, and people think I'm nuts, and maybe someone listens to your podcast will know it.
It happens when you're an older brother and you suffer dementia,
But I swear, currency during the zombie apocalypse. Just saying.
God, that sounds familiar. Maybe I'm just hoping that it.
Right,
happened.
it's an old people thing.
We're just sharing the delusion, Ed.
Was it also bottle caps? Just kidding.
Now we're just mixing things. Like,
Yeah,
now we're just violating trademarks.
It's like a zombie Fallout,
but instead of bottle caps or videotapes, and
Yeah.
Pogs.
People get locked in these vaults to get safe from the zombies.
You sure your brothers weren't just messing with you? Hey, Ed, here's a VHS tape. This is worth something.
I do have an older brother, so maybe.
Oh, jeez. That is Matt.
He who shall not be named.
Oh, sorry. I said his name. I might summon him.
Yeah.
Oh no.
You suck at scary stuff, Sam. Didn't you watch?
Yeah. I've always been that brother that they're like, oh, this is so scary. And I'm like, this is scary. And they're like, no, Sam, it's not scary. Or like, this is really funny. I'm like, haha, this is funny. And they're like, that's not funny, Sam. So like I'm always like a step behind, and I never know. Like I just give up.
I feel like that's a coordinated effort, though.
Oh, it's so bad.
It was probably really funny or really scary. They're like, nah, we're not going to give that to him.
Don't tell.
And the therapy session continues.
Yeah,
right, right.
Glad we could be here for this.
And
All right,
this
Dave.
time, this thing happened.
Yeah, so my number
Oh yeah, I
one.
forgot about you.
I know. Speaking of
See?
needing therapy
It
sessions,
always-
Jesus.
Oh, who are you?
All right, so my number one is a game that I have been playing a ton of for the past probably couple years now, since it pretty much came out, and that is Final Girl by Van Ryder. I'm a huge fan of solo games. I enjoy a ton of different ones. Some of my favorite games are solo games or have really good solo modes. I even built a table at my house just so I could have a place to keep games out without my wife yelling at me. But Final Girl, it is a solo only board game where you are the final girl in your choice of horror thriller. They have a ton of different feature film boxes that they use that have all sorts of different villains as well as locations. I know the second season they came out with leaned a little more into like popular sci-fi horror. So there's just pretty much your flavor that you want to play with. You can find it. The mechanics in it are just really, really good. There is some randomness to it with the dice rolling that you can mitigate with some cards and through some decisions that you make. Sometimes there's just bad stuff though that happens because I mean you are kind of in like a horror film, but it is just a game I keep coming back to over and over, just because it is so clean and plays so good, and there's so much variability from even using the same villain in the same map. You have different events that will come up. You have different movement that happens. The bad guy themselves has different powers that they can gain. And so there's just a ton of replayability, even in only like a base set. It's again, one of my favorite games of all time, but definitely one I enjoy breaking out around this type of season, just because it really embodies that horror movie vibe.
Yep. All right, Dave. Now you're in little brother corner, so you're up next.
Alrighty. So I didn't want to jump in again, but Night Cage was actually my number one. I love that game.
This guy's just copying people, man.
It's really
He didn't make a list either.
I actually didn't even come up with a list. I was like, oh, Mysterium? Yeah, oh yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, sure. yeah, no problem. Yeah. But Night Cage is a really fun game. We actually played it. So it's already been kind of explained. I'll just kind of explain why I like it so much.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, feel free to put anything I left out too.
Yeah, I think you got it all. There is an expansion for anyone who's interested. There is an expansion, or who has the game who doesn't know. There is an expansion that did come out fairly recently. I have not played it, but I know it adds a bunch more monsters, and there's like some kind of tracker or an additional board or some more stuff going on. One of the reasons why I like even just the base game is there's different difficulty levels based off of what kind of challenge rating or like how new they say. Oh, don't include these monsters if it's your first turn, or if you want to go hardcore. And I think we've beat it once on the hardest difficulty, which was quite a challenge, which is really fun. I like when there's the risk of losing, because it is a cooperative game. But one of the things that like really sold it on me is we took it to a Halloween party specifically after we picked it up at Gen Con. We played it a couple times. We took it to a Halloween party with some friends, and we had the Bluetooth speaker out, and we're playing the Spotify soundtrack that comes with it on the rule book. We had tea lights out. We're all sitting in this old creaky wood house. All the floorboards are all creaky, but all the lights were off. We had tea lights around the table. And I explained the game, and we turned the lights down, and we were like, one of the rules was, I think we were trying to like limit how much we could ever say. Like we were trying to be really quiet. Like we weren't going to like talk to each other a whole lot. So it was lots of like trying to communicate and lots of thinking and this like spooky soundtrack in the background. Wonderful experience. It was super fun. And those friends have even said, oh, that was cool. That was like one of the best like Halloween games we've ever played. And I really like Night Cage. I think the aesthetic is really nice. I like that a lot. Everything, again, is very thematic. And I think the game itself is actually quite challenging, which can be difficult for co-op games. Sometimes co-op games you can kind of like solve them. You know,
Yeah.
I've played so much Pandemic at one point in high school that me and my friends, we managed to actually like finish a full game of Pandemic in like 21 minutes. We were like just playing over and over and over again until we were able to like really solve the game. But Night Cage keeps the difficulty, and plus it's just I just love playing it. Every time it comes out on the table, I'm always like, okay, this is going to be a good game. This is going to be fun. So it's great.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
See, I know stuff too.
I know things.
What?
Nothing. Thought that was a dig. Josh is usually the brains. I'm here to be the face. That's,
I totally get you.
I'm the talent, baby. Ed understands.
All right, I'm a huge fan of legacy games. So a great legacy game to bust out this time of year is Betrayal Legacy. So I picked it up probably a couple years ago. So me and a couple of my kids, we and my wife, we played through from the beginning of October, because I picked it up in September, all of October, all the way to Halloween. I think there's 10 or 13 different missions. I forget how many different missions there are. But Betrayal Legacy, if you don't know what Betrayal is, you all go into a haunted house or a house that's haunted, and you go through and you start discovering the rooms, and the rooms have little events that pop up. You start collecting items and do these things. And at a certain point, there's a traitor that pops up. Now, no one knows who the traitor is until the event happens. It reveals what mission you're doing or whatever it is, and then that person's now the traitor, and there's a certain win condition that the traitor has, and there's win condition that everyone else has. And that's the basic concept of Betrayal. Now, Betrayal Legacy is the same thing, but what it is, instead of following a people or family, what it does is it follows a house over like a couple hundred, I think it's 100 and something years or whatever it is. And there's a story, each time you play, it's a different story. Sometimes they're the same characters, sometimes they're other characters, but there's events that happen, and then you permanently mark the tile, so when someone dies on a tile, you put a little skull sticker on, and so when certain events happen, like, it makes that event stronger. You find other things that you keep throughout the campaign, and there's, each time you play, there's a specific story, but there's an overarching campaign that isn't really very apparent to you about middle through the game, and then towards the end of the game, and you're like, I don't know why I'm collecting these things, but they seem like they're important, so I'm going to collect them. Or you're like, I don't care about that. Who cares, right? And then you get to the last game, and you're like, I done screwed that up over here, but I did good here. It's a great game. It's great to play if you have like a game you want to play throughout the month of October for Halloween. To play time after time after time. I think it's like 10 or 13 different things, and it's fun to bust out every once in a while. Be like, oh yeah, that's the one place where my eldest daughter died, and I killed her. It was good times. So, things like that. But it's a great legacy game. I think so.
Our podcast is going to end up on a list.
So there's a theme.
You're the one in Milwaukee. You're the one where Jeffrey Dahmer was, man. I'm just saying. So, but Betrayal Legacy is a great game, and it's one of the, I like a lot of legacy games when they're done right. There's a couple legacy games I don't like, but legacy games I'm a fan of, especially when they're done right, because you're able to have that story, but you have that overarching story as well. And
didn't your daughter accidentally open a portal to hell somewhere or something like that?
In the game, or
yeah?
Okay, checking.
Just clarifying.
I've got a 17-year-old daughter too. It just feels like it could be a possibility. Underage portals are cool. It's fine. They don't. All right, Joseph, what do you got?
All right, so my number one. My number one is Blood on the Clock Tower. I'm not huge on social deduction games much anymore. There was a time where that was all I loved to do. But this one, ever since I heard about it, it sounded like it was like next level storytelling and kind of bringing the mood into what was going on and giving everybody something to do. You don't. It's not player elimination. Even though people get murdered, you can come back and still help in different ways. they're unlike Werewolf. This one has kind of like a DM, if you will. It's like a story. I think they call it the storyteller.
Right. Yeah.
Who is kind of like making sure everyone is doing their role and keeping everything squared away. So I guess this one really probably depends on who's your storyteller and if they are able to set the mood and get run things smoothly. But I would love to play this at like a convention sometime, or just like like a moody house somewhere with a bunch of people, with low lights, candles, and things like that.
Doesn't this one too? This is the one. It's got like a crazy like player count.
Oh.
Like you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like something like you can have like 15 people or something playing this thing at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. I know they were running big games of this at Gen Con. They do almost every con now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I keep seeing it on like events lists and stuff like that. I'm like, man, I want to try this game. Everything that I have read and seen about it, it looks absolutely fantastic. It's definitely on my short list of games that I would love to be a part of.
According to BGG, it's up to 21 players.
21. Yeah, that's still. I don't know if I've got 21 people I want to play with at the same time.
The community says it's best between 7 to 16 now. So.
All right,
It's a huge range.
Right.
Um,
well, there's not a whole lot of 21 player games to start with, so yeah, that feels about right. It feels about right.
So I will say that it's like the most expensive social deduction game I've seen out there. So it's always just like,
right?
When am I going to have
7 to 16 people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
if anyone's never gone to a convention, like you see the hallways at like Gen Con, like it turns 9 o'clock. Guess what happens?
Werewolf time. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's social deduction just all down the hallways and all different stuff. But yeah.
So if anybody gets interested as we're talking cons, Blood on the Clock Tower has its own con. There is Clock Tower Con in Vegas. There's a Clock Tower Cruise, which I think that's a horrible idea. This game just sounds like something I don't want to be stuck at sea playing with people. And then there's a Clock Tower. There's the Clock Tower Con Australia as well down in Sydney. Yeah. So it's definitely well known.
So what happens there? Like, are you allowed to play other games? Like, are you allowed to pull out Werewolf? Would you get banished? If you
I wouldn't try it on the boat.
I make you walk the plank.
Make sure there's an exit. You can leave.
Yeah. Oh man.
Use a fake name.
So now we have to investigate this. We may have to do like a Dapper Meeple trip to Vegas.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's reporting. This is all part of the.
Yeah. That is a business
Integrity.
expense.
So does this one kind of have like a meta to it? What's the other one that if you don't know how to play it, you get
Secret Hitler.
Secret Hitler?
That's the one people get mad at you if you don't know the meta.
Okay. Does Clock Tower have you?
I don't think so. Not that I've heard.
Okay.
Because I know there's like different stories that you're like playing through, or different setups, backgrounds, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think there's too much variability in it, and I think the depth is a little bit like more than a traditional social deduction game. I think that's what makes it what it is.
Yes.
It's a lot less of just that simple trying to figure out who is the bad guy or whatever, than it is like really leaning into that role
Right.
that you get and like almost role playing that. So
Nice.
Yeah, Blood and Clock Tower has definitely got more of a role playing aspect. That's why it's the storyteller. Their goal is to basically be a GM, right? A DM for the game is what it is, and like you have different like things you can do, but a specific role that you can accomplish, which may change when you're killed, but like or different things may happen, and like your winning objective may change like throughout the game. So it's not just like you suck, you should die.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So Sam, what's your number one?
Speaking of you suck, you should die. My number one is Cult of the Deep.
I'm glad one of you three said it.
What? What?
I'm like, I freaking made this game. If no one's going to mention it,
Make
I'm going
Sam
to
do
mention it.
Sam, it was in my honorable mentions
Right?
list. I just want you to know.
I'm a little hurt that he thought we'd missed this one.
Well, we are
we're
number one, and I haven't heard from you guys yet, so I don't know what you want me to say. I had written down Cult of the Deep, quote, same. I was going to say same, because someone was going to mention it. And that didn't happen. Sorry.
So tell us about this Cult of the Deep game,
Yeah,
Sam. Never heard
this
of it
sounds
before.
really cool. I haven't heard anything about this, Sam.
I actually have it. So yes, please inform
You?
me. No, I have not.
Can we stop by the booth?
Yeah,
and talk to
Josh,
Jimmy
what's this
Johnson,
game
too?
called?
Give me a quick rundown on the altar. I can only do the pitch behind the altar, Sam. Without it, I'm useless.
I want you to imagine an altar with tentacles.
Hey man, that thing took a lot of 3D printing work. So just so anyone at home is not tracking or Joseph here, there's actually, if you stop by the booth at Gen Con, we have a rail.
So whenever you get a demo from Jim or Josh at Gen Con, it is on the altar.
I would just like to say our demos were amazing. Just for anybody that's snickering right now out in the audience. But yeah, we've taught Cult of the Deep. I'm pretty sure we've done it in games we play.
Yeah, we definitely have.
Early on. And Cult of the Deep is the reason that we actually, know Sam and Ed and Dave, thanks to, Ed being so he was apparently wandering around and found where we left all our business cards. It's worked out in the long run. It's really worked out. It's been nice. Right? It's culty. It is a social deduction game with other board game mechanics in it, right? So you're not just trying to figure out who the person is that you're trying to get rid of. You're also getting to see some of the actions and stuff that they take. We did run demos at Gen Con. And mostly what I saw is, the first, especially groups that were just showing up so they didn't know each other, the first couple rounds, everybody's real kind of timid, like, oh, I'm not going to do any damage to anybody. Let me put this dagger over here where it doesn't do anything. And then one person stabs somebody and it's on, right? Because you're playing the group of cultists. So, yeah, we remember the spiel. You're playing this group of cultists. All right?
I like how I just deferred. Like, you know what? After you, Jim.
Stockton syndrome. This thing is burned into my brain. So you're in a cult. Cults have all kinds of cool things, ritual sacrifice, all kinds of fun stuff that you get to do. The cult leader is trying to make the cult great again. There are some other people out there looking for regime change, and you have to figure out what your role is, whether you're going to be supportive of the cult leader or if you're trying to take him out, and that's going to determine your win condition. It's also fun, too, because it's another one of these games that if your character dies, which is, really, it's going to happen, you're not out of the game. You get to come back as a wraith. You get your own dice to use through the game, so you can still influence the game. And even though you're dead, you can still win, which I've always really, I've enjoyed that part of it. Like, go ahead and kill me off, see what happens. I'll come back. So, yeah. We were going to mention it, Sam, just so you know. It's in the show notes.
As he's currently typing, I hear it's in the show notes.
Actually, I just deleted it out of honorable mentions.
So yeah, the basic game is you have the three factions are fighting, but you're not sure who's part of which faction is the goal. And the reason why we designed it was because I was sick and tired of oh, your eye twitched or someone sneezed, you're a werewolf because you sneeze. You're like, I have allergies, and they're like, no, only werewolves have allergies. They're like, because they're furry. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so they would just make.
That's a different game, Ed.
A different game, Ed. Different podcast, Ed. Anyways, and so that's kind of the whole thing. I wanted something that was more. So during your turn, you'll roll your dice, and the dice can be used for rituals. they can stab people, they can heal people, you can give yourself power-ups, basically, through the different rituals. And you're trying to figure out, during the meantime, like, well, why did you do that? Like, because only a heretic would do that. You're like, no, I'm doing this because I'm helping. So you're using, like, your dice and stuff, but you're trying to tell a story of how you're going to lie about it, and people see it.
Interesting. Okay.
And then when you die and become a wraith or whatever, the thing is you get your own dice because you get to haunt people. So when they roll dice, you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. You're like, oh, actually, that thing you wanted? Oh, I'm sorry. That's been replaced with this other symbol. Yeah. And so you're like, oh, no. And so you're trying to do stuff, and the race gets kind of just like poke and prod and mess with stuff. Like move, like, oh, I reach for the hairbrush. Nope, I'm just going to move it.
I think one of my favorite types of interactions with this game, especially when we were doing the demos for it, is when you get that one person that either wasn't paying attention to us when we went over the rules and how to play this, or you have somebody that just kind of misses the point, and then they just go hard into the game trying to kill the high priest or something, and then they do, and everybody flips their card over and is like, you were faithful. What are you doing? Like, did you what?
Didn't quite get the memo.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, we saw something that was just, brutal. Yeah. Brutal. And he flipped his card over like, ha. And I was like, ha, what? Like,
you killed your buddy.
Yeah. I will say we've talked about this multiple times when we talk about Cult of the Deep. It is a game, because we're not huge on social deduction games either. We never have been, but it is the one social deduction game that we continue to come back to and continue to break out because of the other elements involved in it. The dice mechanics, the rituals, all those things that add that extra to it, make it much more gamier. Like it's less trying to like you said, Sam, stare at somebody and see how they twitch, as opposed to their actually actions and things to take to either show your true colors or conceal them or whatever have you. And I think that's definitely why we keep coming back to it for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but my favorite moment was at, I think it was your game, Ed, that I was watching. It was you, Chessa, and Colt Grandma. So, we see her now every Gen Con. She says hi.
Yeah.
But, like, they were playing, I can't remember what happened, but, like, they went unnoticed completely and then absolutely murdered someone. And they're like, I thought you were my friend. And they're like, nope. I lied.
Yeah, that was Colt Grandma. So Colt Grandma is someone from our first Gen Con when we first exhibited back in 2021. She played the game in the play hall. I made a horrible joke about her being old, and she thought it was the funniest crap in the world, which means I read her right. It was good. And so she just became Colt Grandma. And so...
Yeah. So right, a couple of honorable mentions, but
if I could add something here to Cult of the Deep real quick.
Yeah, dude.
I guess any listeners that were interested about the design process at all, episode 17 is the episode where we did our first interview with the Dapper Meeple. That should have, I believe I was there for that one. I'm pretty sure. But that will be, if I'm remembering correctly, it's kind of like why we designed it, how we designed it, what the game's about, all that stuff. So if you're interested, you can go to that episode 17.
Yeah, I think I see Jim typing that in the show notes. Is that what
Hey, look, not all of us make the selfish plug there, Sam.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Sam, what's your deal, man?
That was a plug within a plug. That was good.
So now, my honorable mentions.
Damn, my bad.
So yeah, just a couple of the games that really didn't make the list, but as we're talking about it, it's like, that's a pretty good game, and it should fit somewhere in here. So you've got Horrified, the original version in here.
Yeah. So if anybody who's a fan of the original Universal monsters, right, Frankenstein, werewolf, mummy,
right, Bela Lugosi stuff.
Yeah, Horrified is a fantastic co-op game that is really great for groups of people who maybe aren't gamers, because it's very straightforward, very light rules, but it includes all those classic monsters. they've come out with, I think, 3 other editions since then. But the original one is definitely the Halloween one that I would throw in.
Yeah.
Just because of the monsters that are in there. But it's definitely one of my like suggestions for games if you have a group of people who either haven't played a lot of games or maybe aren't necessarily into games. Kind of their like training wheels version of a cooperative game to let people kind of get in and play.
Yeah.
So.
That one seems. We have the American horror one, right?
We have both.
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. One of us keeps track of the collection,
It's usually the little brother.
right? That's their job, right? Take notes. Oh, that might be it too. Fair, Dave. Fair. The next one we got that we wanted to talk was it's one of our favorites anyway. Was Zombicide, and there's just tons of Zombicide out there. There is the Night of the Living Dead version of it, but it is what it is. I mean, it is zombies. We actually have the Supernatural Sam and Dean Winchester expansion as well. So if you want to like make it a little bit spookier for any of the Supernatural fans out there, you can go find that. It's a zombie survival game. It's pretty easy. I don't think we've had anybody that sat and played it that didn't pick up on it pretty quick. Yeah. And it is cooperative. You don't have to feed anyone to a zombie. I'm pretty sure that
Looking at you, Ed.
Well,
I'm pretty sure that loses you the game in this one. So yeah, everybody's trying to make it out alive.
well, you always had that one guy who's like, "Don't worry, guys, I'll take care of it," and he goes and then rolls horribly and
Just gets wrecked.
Just wrecked. You're like, "Well, you suck."
Yeah.
Way to go! You took the chainsaw with you. I needed that,
Right? They always take the stuff you need too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had plenty of those. And then kind of last on our honorable mention list was Nemesis. Which is which is for those that we've talked about it before. It is Aliens the board game without legally being Aliens the board game. Even the sculpts are they're xenomorphs.
You may or may not be on a ship with these with Marines,
Right?
With these
Marines.
aliens in the ducks, and there may or may not be like face huggers and
It's
Guns.
face.
yeah.
Grab
That one of the-
distinct aliens, all right?
One of your characters you could play is actually in a wheelchair. Yeah. But the game itself, we've always liked. Matter of fact, I think I liked this one. We saw the actual Aliens game that came out after it.
Yeah.
And this is just far better. Like, just so much better as far as how it was done. And it's just like, they're not hiding anything in this. Like what we've talked about. You are on a ship, and there are aliens crawling around, and you've got things you've got to do. You've got to make sure that the engines are wired right. You got to make sure that the navigation system is pointing you in the right direction. And it's semi-cooperative because at some point, everybody can get like their own personal goals. And their goal may be like, hey, I just need you to bring one of those alien eggs back to Earth, and this company will pay you a shit ton of money for it. So it adds that like almost trader mechanic in, which is a lot of fun. Yeah. And that's one of the parts that we liked about it. And then again, like I said, you're doing your own thing. So maybe you're the guy checking the engine and it's like, hey, blow the ship up and get out of there and you'll be fine. And that's how that's part of your win condition. So, again, don't trust anybody at your game table.
Yeah, I've heard of one guy's like, yeah, the engine's totally fine, and everyone believes him. Come to find out, he lied. Engine
Right?
was not fine.
You go to punch it, and all of a sudden, we're all dead.
You're like, what have you done? It's all good.
Yeah, right?
I won.
Yeah.
I'm in the escape pod. I don't know what you doing.
Yes.
So from you guys, any honorable mentions, anything that we've missed that you think people should know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got
Go
quite
first,
a few.
Ed.
I got quite a few.
Cool. I got a few. I'll be real quick. They're not quite Halloween, but they're adjacent. So one of the I really enjoy is a card game called Bloom. Once again, I'm going to stick with a theme here. You got to kill off opponent's family, right? But you want to kill off your own family when they're miserable. So the whole point of the game is to make your family as miserable as possible and play the happy fun card on everyone else's family. They're happy, and then kill the happy people on the opposing families. So it's really cool. I like the mechanic because the cards are characters, but they're all transparent cards. you put on top of the cards, and there's a storytelling mechanic. So once again, you need to play with the right group of people who like to tell stories. Because every time you play a card on top of a person, you're saying, oh, and then so-and-so went for a walk. Or you can be boring and be like, oh, they're happier now. Oh, they're less happy. But if you... Great game.
Could you spell... I thought you said Bloom. I'm Googling Bloom, or like on BGG. I'm like, this is not matching up with what you're...
It's so happy.
what you're saying. Well, those are the flowers that grow on the dead people after the fact. So Gloom's a great game. The other two, Seventh Continent, I really enjoy. It's not really a horror game, but it's a survival game. And the game always starts out with you had this dream of some kind of weird shrine and things like that. And so it's card driven. It's tons of cards. It's a great game, very story driven, but it's really a survival game. So you go around, you have to collect sticks and make fire and create weapons and stick your hands in weird objects to create statues and do all kinds of weird stuff. And so it's like basically Seventh Continent, aka like down in freaking Antarctica, but there's like jungles and crap. So
Nice.
it's kind of like Savage Lands type stuff going on with weird stuff and magic and ancient temples and cults and stuff like that. So it's a great game. And then I think the other one I would talk about would be Madara is a great dungeon crawler.
Yep.
It's JRPG or Japanese RPG, like you used to play like Final Fantasy VII type thing in a box. It's a massive dungeon crawler. There is horror adjacent elements to it, and like one of the characters has this black substance that gets sucked into them and it's like taking control of their body. But that's about as horror as it gets.
Cool.
Some of the Act 2 and 3 is supposed to come out next year, but it's a great game. If you like Japanese RPGs and you like dungeon crawlers, it plays like a JRPG, like down to
nice.
like there's mini games in between sessions and things like that where you play this little card dice battler game, right? Just like
Fair.
list.
Sam
Joseph,
or
Dave, yeah.
Joseph?
I have one.
Mhm.
It's not really a published game. It's one that I actually designed a while back, but I have no real intention of ever publishing it. But it's one I pull out every year or so. It's a real easy. It's just a game I designed at a game jam with Break My Game a few years back, where you're it's called Trick or Treat, and you get to beat kids getting candy door to door. You choose which doors you want to go to based on the candy that they have. You're trying to collect some candies. And then there's a prisoner's dilemma aspect to it. Everybody has two cards, and it's either you trick or you treat. So at the door, you have at whatever door you're at, some of the candies are flipped over so you can see what they are, and some of them are face down. And if you treat with all the other players that are at that door, you all get to split that evenly up, or all the face up ones. But if you trick, you get to take all the candies, even the face down ones, and those could be sometimes bad ones too. They can be raisins or other things that you don't really want. So I had a lot of fun designing it. It just doesn't really mesh with my publishing company, but I mean, kind of fun fact. That's kind of how I kind of started, kind of skipping into working on We're Sinking, because I really love the Prisoner's Dilemma mechanic.
I was going to say, we know that mechanic. That sounds real familiar. So, especially some of the people that we play with, they went for the plunder like every time. They lied about it, but they went for the plunder. So just adding the pirate element into it as well. So yeah. Sam?
Ooh, like I said, I got a few here. So one of these I've played, and that's Dead of Winter. That's a classic. Zombie, trying to survive, feed the people, and then you can play either cooperative or you can play with the trader. You have two choices on that one, where you got to make decisions and voting on who's going to do what, and oh, I'm going to add this card of food. Of course it's food. Yes, it's definitely food. Yeah. And so you're trying to board up the compound and everything else. So that was pretty good. If you haven't tried that one, that's really good. Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh wow.
So did winner. And then the next three are ones I want. They're on my list to play. One is The Thing.
Like the classic movie, The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, well, not the... Which movie?
The old one. Yeah, didn't they remake that?
Because there's one other thing where they're like a base in like Antarctica or Norway or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the one I'm thinking about.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, cool.
There's also like The Thing from the Lagoon, Black Lagoon.
The one with Kurt Russell.
The green like monster.
Yeah.
No, the Kurt Russell one's that's the one that's out in the Antarctica, right? He was in that one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah, so that's the game. Is like, so someone has the thing on them, but you don't know which one of you has the thing. So you're trying to get around doing stuff, and the only win condition is that when you leave to the helicopter, that the thing is not with you. That's the only way to win.
Nice.
So sometimes, I'm your buddy all to the end, man. I'm with you. Gonna find out.
That's because you're infected. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, good. Thanks, buddy. So that was one. Unfathomable, which is a remake of Battlestar Galactica.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know it's sci-fi with the whole Cylon thing, but that one's really a lot of fun. Where like you don't find out who you are potentially until halfway through the game.
Nice.
We're like, oh, I'm totally a faithful, happy person. Oh. Halfway you find out, oh, I'm actually an evil person. Okay. Abomination, Heir of Frankenstein. Worker placement, but what you're trying to do is you're building your own Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
So you get to acquire resources from graveyards or, the street or from a party.
I was going to say.
And so they're fresher, and fresher ingredients have better stats for your Frankenstein's monster.
I think that's a Wendy's slogan, isn't it? Fresher ingredient? Never mind.
And then,
I told you, my goal is to get a cease and desist letter from
I
somebody.
think it's Papa John's.
Oh, my bad.
And then the last one is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This one, we have some friends over at the Board Game Rundown. They constantly tell me about this game. And if you look it up, it's like hidden movement game. So like you're trying to find out where you're going to go to collect like your key, because the car, out of gas. You get the keys, you get the gas, you get different things, you get your car going again. But there's also, Leatherface there, and you don't know where he's going to show up. And you may be like looking this way in the thing, and you kind of trying to turn around, and he's like right there up behind you. And you're like, oh crap! And so you're trying to run away and get from him and stuff. But when you pull the tokens from the bag, it's actually like a sewn leather face bag. Thing that you pull your movement from.
That's fantastic.
Right? Yeah. Really, really bring me in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Nice.
Nice. So Dave, you got any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I do. So these are, well, I guess I'll start with the one I've played. I was going to mention Dead of Winter, because that's one I have wanted to play. I've never actually played a full game. I've played like the first couple turns, and it seems like a good thing to mention. Kind of, I guess, delving into my other hobbies of video games. The Dark Souls board game, if you've played Dark Souls before, there is a board game. It is very much the aesthetic and the theme is a little bit more horror. It's a lot darker, lots of gargoyles, and kind of very like gothic architecture and stuff going on. I really like the game. I'm a fan of the Dark Souls series. I'm not the best at it. I'm pretty trash. But I really like the aesthetic, and the game itself is actually quite fun. You can do kind of like an endless kind of dungeon, so you can have multiple sessions of where everyone comes back, for the next, like, I remember when I did it, we had like one day every week for about 4 weeks, where we'd meet up at the game store, we would set up, and we would do each of the sessions or whatever, we'd do each of the dungeons and do the boss and stuff like that. Miniatures are beautiful, if you like that. Fun, kind of darker fantasy kind of thing. And then the other one, which I have not played, but I'm a huge fan of Darkest Dungeon. And they did a board game.
Ooh.
And I know some people really liked it, some people not so much, but I really liked Darkest Dungeon as the video game, and I like miniatures, and it has very much this goth aesthetic to it. So that's one of the games I'd like to try. But those are just really. I think all the rest of them.
Look at the pricing of Darkest Dungeon. Mythic just went under officially. They are liquidating.
So now,
Nice.
There you go.
So if you want it, we're look at the price and see what's going on with it, because I'm not sure what will happen in the future price wise. So totally spend all your fortune on it and totally, go all in and then
Invest now.
Yeah.
You will not regret it.
This is
next
financial
Battlestar Galactica.
This is financial advice, Dapper Meeple.
Hey, Sam, we're trying to stay off list. Stop it.
This is not financial advice.
I figured this would be the thing
I
that came
thought
from
you
Ed.
wanted a
That was
cease and desist letter.
I'll get you one.
We can make things happen here.
So remember, kids, when you have partnerships, watch them too. Basically, the theme of this episode is don't trust anybody. That's where we are right now. That's where we are. So, in all seriousness, guys, Dave, Ed, Joseph, Sam, thank you guys so much for coming in and doing this with us. We've talked a lot about it's the people that we get to meet doing all this that makes it fun. So for the rest of you out there listening,
For the Dapper Meeple, I'm Josh.
and I'm Jim. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, for sticking around and listening to our show.
If you enjoyed it, let me ask you a favor. Follow us and leave a like wherever you get your podcast. It'll really help us out.
And if you have anything to say back to us, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for the Dapper Meeple. Or you can email us at dappermeeplegaming@gmail.com.
And as always, we'll save you a seat at the table.